Today on episode 66 of the podcast, we will be reviewing the film, a Minecraft movie, and breaking down episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again. We'll also be giving you the rundown of the top stories of the week, including a lot out of CinemaCon, including a brand new release date for Beyond the Spider-Verse. But I'm Brad, he's Josh, and this is We'll Bring the Popcorn.
Before we jump into our news stories this week, please don't forget to give us a like and subscription on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you're getting our episodes and they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. Also, don't forget to go to we'llbringthepopcorn.com where you can get all of our archive episodes, all our social media information, and as well as a link to our merch store so you continue to support the show in that way. We can't thank you enough for your continued support.
Yeah, so we're going to start the episode off with a little sad news. I mean, we had an actor pass away. He was Batman in Batman Forever. He was Madmartigan in Willow. He was Simon Templar in The Saint. Jim Morrison in The Doors. Of course, one of my absolute favorites and many people's favorites was Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Fantastic.
He was Iceman in Top Gun. He also was Heat and Real Geniuses. And he's got such a... Well, there's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which was one of his last big ones before he ended up getting cancer and losing his voice. And had a lot of changes in life. If you haven't seen the Val documentary, I highly recommend going and seeing this behind-the-scenes look at his life. But Val Kilmer has passed away at 65.
Yeah, incredibly young still, but my God, so many incredible movies. You just listed like a top-level Rolodex of stuff that he was in, and like he even made a cameo appearance in Top Gun Maverick, even despite the fact that he couldn't really speak anymore. Like, just an incredible career. My top go-to role for him, like you said, is always going to be Doc Holliday in Tombstone. Just an absolutely incredible performance. The fact that he won nothing for that movie is just blasphemous in my opinion. Like, one of the best roles that he's ever played and one of the best roles ever written into a film. Like, so many iconic lines that he had in that movie, and he was just so brilliant as an actor in that film. But man, you talk about, like you said, Jim Morrison in The Doors. He was freaking one of the people to play Batman. You know what I mean? Like, there's a very short list of people that have done that. And just an incredible career he's had. He's going to be very sorely missed, but a true talent was lost for sure.
I think even though he kind of started out, and a lot of people forget about his comedic timing and stuff because of Real Geniuses and Top Secret and everything, like he was really fantastic with his comedy beats and stuff as well, even though he did a lot of serious. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was a mix. Like, it had some serious aspects, but it was pretty tongue-in-cheek and, kind of over the top, but that was a lot of fun. Like, a lot of people have been sharing a lot of clips of different movies, but he kind of always gave his all to kind of every role. They even talk about Heat, how the way he reloaded his weapon was used by the military. Like, all right, this is a proper way that you all should do a fast reload, all based on how he did a reload in a movie. Like, he's had an impact on a lot of people from across all the different movies and everything else that he did. Like I said, again, watch that Val documentary. There's a lot of good behind the scenes stuff. Like, he always carried a camera around with him, even back in the days when you still had the big honking cameras with the VHS tapes or the little micro tapes and stuff that they were filming with. But he did behind the scenes stuff before they were really doing behind the scenes stuff. And it was really interesting to see up to where he got his throat cancer and then seeing kind of how his life changed and how it was after. And yeah, it was a great thing. Again, no matter what you feel about Tom Cruise, the way he fought to make sure Val Kilmer got a role in Top Gun Maverick and got his kind of proper send-off. And even at CinemaCon, Tom came up to talk about Mission Impossible and stuff and gave a kind of heartfelt remembrance to Val Kilmer on that stage. So it was really nice to see. But it looks like he passed away from complications of pneumonia. But yeah, 65 just still feels so young. It's about the age my dad was when he passed away from cancer. And it was just... He was a fantastic actor that, of course, cancer cut his acting down big, but I'll always remember Doc Holliday and most things he's been in. Of course, Iceman was probably his most prolific role that everyone remembers him for, but the acting performance that most remember for is for Doc.
Yeah, just an incredible career. I think it's very underrated. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about his time playing Jim Morrison in the Doors film. Like, if you know anything about that, he did his own singing as Jim Morrison in that movie. And what's incredible is the surviving members of the Doors who were a part of that movie and watched it were very much taken aback by how much he embodied and encapsulated the spirit of Jim Morrison and his tone and his mannerisms and the way he moved, like a very underrated performance as Jim Morrison in the Doors movie, and just a phenomenally talented actor, and just a real sad, tragic end to his acting career with cancer. We all know people who have unfortunately passed from that or have been affected by it, present company included. But it's just so sad to see somebody like lose their life that young, who still, for whatever reason, could have given so much more to the acting, the acting craft, that it's a talent that'll be missed for sure.
And I sent you something yesterday that I just had to laugh about, because it seems out of the blue, but also, that's kind of fitting for Val, because he was a bit off kilter. That I think it was Will Forte was talking about how Val Kilmer wanted to do The Amazing Race with him. So that reality competition show, like they were both gung-ho, all about it. We're going to go do The Amazing Race together. They talked to their people to see if it would do, and like, you're absolutely not doing that. So they shot it down and they never got to do it. And I think Will said it's one of the biggest regrets that we never got to do that together that I'll probably have, because even if we got eliminated right away, like that would have just been so much fun and laughs and such incredible to say, hey, I went and did The Amazing Race with Val Kilmer.
That would have been an incredible thing to see. Like, I've never really watched that show, but had they been on there, I absolutely would have given it a chance.
Yeah, that would have been a ton. I used to watch it a ton. I've been hit or miss on the seasons lately. That was kind of my go-to back and forth with Survivor and Amazing Race, and kind of hitting them both together. But if you would have got Val on The Amazing Race, that would have been just really incredible.
Would have absolutely gone out of my way to watch that for sure. But yeah, thoughts I'll go to his family and friends, and everyone who enjoyed the work that he did. Go check out a Val Kilmer movie if you want to throw on Tombstone or The Doors or just any of the incredible works that he's been in, to kind of pay tribute to him. I want to go back and watch the Doors movie again for sure, just to kind of see that one, because very underrated performance it is for sure.
Yeah, there's probably a few I might revisit Willow and see
Sure.
him again in there, and something a little more family friendly. That's something I still like. I didn't get to watch the sequel series that they did. And of course they were talking about in season 2, if it got there, that they were going to try to figure out a way to get Val Kilmer to be a part of it. And of course that got not only canceled after one season, it got completely wiped off the face of existence by Disney. So it would have been great to see him come back to it. We know he had his health issues, but yeah, there's definitely a few I'm going to revisit here, and some that I don't even know if I was able to really get to watch. So I'm going to go back and try to find a few of his that like maybe underrated gems that I never got to see.
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, comment in our social medias and, give us a comment on this video. What is your favorite Val Kilmer movie? Give us a nice remembrance for Val this week, as, 65 was way too young. But I want to move us into our news stories of the week. And the first one that kicks off comes out of CinemaCon, which has been going on now for several days. But we got so much news coming out of this, long convention. And it's one that you and I have been kind of waiting to hear some updated news on, for a film that's been delayed now since that was supposed to come out in 2024, really. Yeah. And that's Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is the third and final film of the Spider-Verse animated trilogy that we've loved so far. And we finally got a release date, so it's going to be coming out, as of now, it's going to hit on June 4th, 2027. And that's still 2 years away, which is an incredibly long time. But it feels good to finally at least have a concrete date in there and an end goal in sight. Now, this movie recently hasn't been without its controversies, obviously, with the lead actor in the voice role and some of the things he's said on social media and have been a little problematic, especially in regards to one of his co-stars, Haley Steinfeld and everything. But at the end of the day, this is still a film that we're very much looking forward to coming out finally.
Yeah, because we left on the second one in a very interesting place. We've also had Marvel talking about how this third one may kind of be the end of the multiverse in a way, or the multiverse saga before we go into the mutant saga, because they talked like, well, after Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, we might have Miles Morales in live action. We might have this and that. So it's definitely going to play a part. We don't know what kind of part. In the second one, we got Donald Glover doing a cameo. Of course, he showed up in one of Tom Holland's Spider-Man films, so we have a connection. We've also, you already saw in that second one as well, clips from all the various live action Spider-Man and stuff that we've had as well. So it is interconnected, but man, that's going to be 4 years after the second one came out before we get the third and final trilogy. Like, I kind of felt like when they announced, or is it more than that? Or is it 4 or 5 years? How long has it been since the second one?
It's been a minute, man. Either way, it's been way too long since we've revisited.
Yeah, but it's kind of crazy that we're waiting till, but it also felt like, all right, you announced it for 2024, and almost everybody in the industry was like, how's that going to come out in 2024? And we got nothing. 2024 was coming. They're like, all right, we've heard nothing. All right, it's been delayed till 2025. And now in 2025, it's coming out in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like them kicking it down the road that far just gives it a little bit more of a concrete date to come out. Mm-hmm. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure to see when it comes, because we're very excited for the conclusion of that story too, because it left in a really cool place story-wise to see going forward, obviously, with Miles showing up in the universe that the spider that bit him came from as opposed to his own. And he runs into, an evil version of himself who's the Prowler, and just to kind of see, like how that plays out and how it, resolves itself in that final movie. So definitely one that we're definitely looking forward to the conclusion of. But that wasn't the only Spider-Man news that we got coming out of CinemaCon. We finally got a name for Spider-Man 4, which we know is coming out next year. It's going to be called Spider-Man Brand New Day, and it's going to hit theaters as well, July 31st, 2026. So we got a hard date for that film as well, which we knew was coming around that time, but it's exciting to see something official for it.
We've left home behind, and now we have Day. So this does relate to a comic series under the same name, which does already kind of tie into what's going on, that no one knows who Spider-Man is. Doctor Strange has wiped everything, so they're kind of going on and continuing on into that. And, Tom Holland did say this is a fresh start. If you saw where we left with the third one, this is a fresh new start for Spider-Man. We're all expecting, we got the little bit brighter red and blue suit at the end of the third film, and we're expecting it to be a street level. There's been some butting of heads between Sony and Marvel, that Sony still wants it to be a big multiverse thing, while Marvel wanted it to be more grounded street level. We'll see what kind of compromise and who wins out in that, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. Tom Holland will be the first Spider-Man actor to get 4 of his own films, because Tobey Maguire ended at 3. They had greenlit 4, but it never came to fruition. And then, of course, Andrew Garfield's ended after 2. It didn't end up getting even a third to finish off as a trilogy. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they go when they're calling this a fresh start, and how many more Spider-Man films we could be getting with Tom Holland after this, because we expect he's going to at least cameo in Doomsday, and will have a much bigger role in Secret Wars from what we see, because Spider-Man Brand New Day will be taking place, I think, right after Doomsday or during the time of Doomsday. So we got to see exactly how Peter Parker and Spider-Man really tie into Doomsday to see where he goes forward with Secret Wars.
Yeah, and it's being released obviously after Doomsday, so it's going to at least canonically line up, like you said, around the same time, or maybe in the aftermath of it. And it's going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. Like, obviously they're still wrapping up filming Christopher Nolan's film, and haven't really started shooting the Spider-Man film yet, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think he'll be filming the Odyssey until July, so it's not going to be until maybe early fall that we get Spider-Man 4 filming.
Which is a crazy turnaround from a fall shooting to a July release. So that tends to lead me to believe that it's going to be more street level, so there won't be as much CGI and all of that needed to make this movie, which has got a kind of interesting tone, because you could potentially have tie-ins to these other street level Marvel entities that we're talking about, whether it's, another Matt Murdock appearance as Daredevil or what have you. There may be some alludes to Wilson Fisk, and we'll talk why he may not necessarily be available to make an appearance unless an agreement is reached in the news story that we'll talk about a little later. But I'm interested to see what the tone of this is going to be. We've got some early casting names attached to it as well. There's been Sadie Sink from Stranger Things is going to be involved in this film, and what role was yet to be determined. Theories are wild and abound on the internet as to what she's doing and what her involvement in this movie is going to be. But one that's exciting, and it's going to make a ton of money, as it always is. Spider-Man is about as easy a bankable of a star as you have in superhero world at this point, because every single one of Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies is either, if not hit a billion plus that he's been in, which is crazy to think about. And it just goes to show how much everybody loves Spider-Man.
And I'm glad we finally do have a release date for Beyond the Spider-Verse. I'm looking forward to both of them, but that we finally, hopefully they can stick to this release date in 2027, even though we've got 2 more years to wait for that. But I am really looking forward to see where Marvel is going forward with all of this, because of course they announced the Doomsday cast with the chairs, and now every single actor that's ever had anything to do with Marvel is being asked, are you coming back? Are you showing up? Are you coming back? No, I can't. No one, unless they've signed that agreement and Marvel has announced it, is going to say, oh yeah, I'm in it, because they're not allowed to.
Have fun teasing it though. Like they've even come out and said that, we haven't announced the full cast of Doomsday yet, which is insane given the number of people that are already attached.
Even Channing Tatum, who was already confirmed, joke that it never said Gambit. It just said that I have a seat and I have a chair for the movie, but it never says I was playing Gambit.
So, the internet's having some fun with that, saying he's going to bring his role from like 21 and 22 Jump Street in there, and his name's going to be Jeff, and it's just so
Jeff
funny.
step through a portal.
Yeah,
My name is Jeff. It's right to Doomsday.
Yeah.
Or to Doom, not Doomsday, but Doom.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to see what all is attached to that, too, because that's just going to be bonkers when it comes out.
We had another story that came out during the time of CinemaCon here and here's another drinking game shot here, because Godzilla Minus One director Takeshi Yamazaki, and again, I am the name butcherer, he's moving forward with his first English language film at Sony. It's going to be called Grand Gear. J.J. Abrams will be producing the film. We don't know any story details on it, but it's pretty amazing that he was able to do a Godzilla film for under $15 million, have it win an Oscar, get a sequel greenlit to that film, and now getting to helm an English language film with J.J. Abrams and Sony. Like, good for him.
You talk about taking scraps and making something masterful out of it, man. He's got an eye for good storytelling. He's done incredible work so far. I'm excited to see what he does with Grand Gear for sure, but yeah, excited for the Godzilla Minus One follow-up, see how he, plays off the next one, and then getting an English language film greenlit too is another great step for him. I'm excited to see what kind of movie this is going to be, because all we got is the name and who's behind it, but if it's, J.J. Abrams attached to it, it's going to be, kind of a bigger story, so it's exciting to see some news that'll come out of that for sure.
It's also funny, the timing of everything too, because we have in the comic realm that a Godzilla versus Marvel versus X-Men versus different Marvel characters are coming out, because I actually got a couple issues that has Spider-Man on the cover, Godzilla and Spider-Man on the cover to give to my daughter who loves Godzilla and Spider-Man. So we've got Godzilla mashing up with Marvel, and we have, maybe it'll end up being a secret Marvel project or something. We never know.
That's so funny. But yeah, that's one of the wonderful things about comics, man, is you can just create some of the most absurd stuff, and you never know, it could hit. But Godzilla versus the Marvel universe is pretty funny. I can see some really crazy over the top stuff coming out of that. Wouldn't be out of the realm of, possibilities, especially when you talk about flying, things that, they're having to fight like they do in the Avengers and stuff.
We got a kaiju type of creature in the new Superman movie. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't be out of the realm if, okay, you can do big monsters, we'll do big monsters too. We'll take on Godzilla.
We'll take our swing out of it. That just seems so silly to me. But yeah, definitely news worth keeping an eye on. I want to move into our next news story here, and we got confirmation. It's been kind of rumbled about for a minute that, we got several, biopics coming out of some legendary musicians and stuff. You can go back in our archives and see what we thought about the Bob Marley film, what we thought about the Bob Dylan biopic. You got the Michael Jackson biopic coming up that's got a lot of people excited as well.
Which might be delayed, so we haven't heard for certain, but it might be moving to 2026.
Yeah, very well could be delayed as well. But now we get casting confirmation for the Beatles biopic that's been kind of in the talks for a while, but you've got Harris Dickinson being cast in the role of John Lennon. You got Paul Mescal as Paul, which is an interesting casting choice. You got Barry Keoghan as Ringo Starr, and you got Joseph Quinn as George Harrison. So you got some pretty heavy hitters attached to this Beatles biopic, man, especially with, Paul Mescal, Barry Keoghan, and Joseph Quinn, who all are very much high-profile actors at the moment, for various reasons. But it's a heck of a get to play, what could be one of the most, if not the most iconic band of all time.
And what the wildest part of this is that they announced they're going to release all 4. So each film is going to be about one of the Beatles. They're releasing them all in the same month in April 2028. So you're going to have 4 weeks in a row where you're going to have a Beatles biopic done. And I assume they're going to have probably afterwards where you can watch all 4 in like one sitting if you're that big into it. But like to do 4 films about the Beatles is crazy already to go that you're doing 4 separate films, but going to release them in the exact same month is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know if that's going to be good or hurt the box office, because what if each one of them, well, they do 100 million each, but if you gave them more time, would they have done a whole lot better than they did? And see exactly just how big people are still in the Beatles in 2028 to be able to go out and say, hey, I'm spending my entire month of April watching Beatles movies.
Yeah, and you have your diehard Beatles fanatics even to this day. Like, it's crazy to think that they're all getting their individual movies. Like, you think there's more popular members than others. Obviously, John Lennon being the front man of the group, who tragically is the one that had his life cut short the quickest at, sort of not quite the height of their popularity, but at the same time, like far, far, far too young to, have his life cut as short as it was. But you've got Paul McCartney, who's still out here doing these mega giant tours and playing.
Some people believe is a clone.
Let's not even unpack that here. But, like some of the more popular, are their movies going to fare better than, say, a George Harrison, who very much has an interesting, life story to tell as well. If you, are a big enough fan and want to deep dive into that, he's had an incredible life and career as well. And then you got Ringo Starr, who's kind of, the more, probably one of, if not the more low key member of the group, who, wasn't even the original drummer of the group. And, like, he's gone on to do a few acting things. I know when we were younger, the Thomas the Tank Engine stuff playing, on the kids show and everything like that. Just some fun stuff they could do with that. But it'd almost be interesting to see which of those movies does better than the other if they're releasing around the same time. Who are they going to lead with? You going to lead with the John Lennon one, or are you going to lead with the Ringo one and go like maybe in an ascending order of popularity? Who knows? Like, I don't know which one they said was going to release when, or if they've talked about it, but there's going to be some interesting movies to follow.
I'll be curious how intertwined they are. Are they all telling along the same timeline or the same story? But because I think they released that it might be the same story, just told from the different perspectives,
which would be cool
from each of them. But if it is, if they're 2 hours each, is that 8 hours worth of movie that you're worth watching if they're telling the same story from a different angle? It just really matters how they go about the approach to the story and everything too, because like John Lennon stuff and all of them at their peak had everything, but a lot of their individual stuff happens much later and much after, and some of them don't have that after, just like Lennon. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with these 4 films, and how much they do intertwine with each other, and how this one single month release works for it, because that's ambitious to take 4 films about the Beatles and put them out at the exact same time.
It's very risky and very ambitious. I'm applauding them for taking the risk. We'll see how it pays off for them.
And we did get 3 stories from the world of John Wick from CinemaCon as well that I want to move into. So the John Wick spinoff Kane with Donnie Yen is officially moving forward. He will star and direct. They said stylistically it's going to be like his other films he's directed, so they're not exactly pigeonholing him into what Chad and the rest of John Wick films does. If you've seen anything that Donnie Yen's directed, it is very highly stylistic. Like he's directed some crazy action sequences and stuff as well. So, having him not only star but direct in his own spinoff is going to be really interesting to see what we get out of that. And we also got word that John Wick 5 is officially a go. So we got Keanu returning. We don't know exactly how that's going to work, if he faked his death or whatever, how they're going to do that, or if maybe we're following someone else and he's going to be some flashbacks, because they've all hinted and talked around like, well, if we do a John Wick 5, are we leaving John dead, or is he coming back? It's going to be interesting to see how they do it, but they have Chad Stahelski back at the helm directing it, so at least you've got your 2 main behind this universe returning for it.
Yeah, I guess Keanu's knees might be a little better off than he was giving. than he was
back that brings sugar. Oh, my knees feel great.
Yeah, a couple injections are good to go. But seriously, like, I love the way that John Wick 4 ended, and I'm kind of on the fence about whether I really want a John Wick 5. Like, I like some of the spin-off stuff that they're doing. I'm excited to see Ballerina when it comes out later this year. Kane could be fun. I really like Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen's a very talented filmmaker, too, and going to be cool to see, like, that spin-off. And we'll talk about the other one that's coming as well, but with John Wick 5 finally coming to fruition, I just don't know what story they're going to try to tell with this, because you can't have Lance Reddick in this anymore, unfortunately, with his passing, and his last appearance is going to be in the Ballerina film. And, just where they're going forward with it, the way things left, because a lot of stuff got blown up and a lot of stuff got, felt like a finishable story to it. So interesting to see the direction they take with that for sure. Of course, I'm going to watch it. I love the John Wick movies, but I'm a little cautiously optimistic on the story that they're going to try to tell, and just how much heavy it's going to actually be John Wick in the John Wick film. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, John Wick 4 felt like a fitting ending to the series to end it how he did. That if you bring him back for 5, well, now you've kind of taken off the table. You can't kill him again, because it's just like, all right, so you killed him off in 4 and you bring him back for 5 just to kill him off again. Like,
but did they kill him in 4?
But did they kill? Well, I mean, you ended looking at his grave and everything else, so you at least put that in people's minds that he's dead. Yeah. So if you bring him back and kill him again, or do you bring him back and give him a happy ending? But is he someone that deserves a happy ending? Even though, he's gone on for vengeance stuff, he's also a guy that's killed a lot of people and has done a lot of bad things that, there's a morality issue with it and stuff. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with it. Of course, he is going to appear in the Ballerina, and we're looking forward to that, even though it got delayed like a year and a half so they could do a bunch of reshoots, which the rumor was that Chad came in and basically reshot the entire film. Trailers so far look fantastic. Sure. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. She looks like she really got herself in action, like, ready. Like, those films are high on the action, on being believable. Like, Keanu has always been good about how the guns work and how the gunplay works and everything else, and it looks like they've stuck to that with the Ballerina. But yeah, they're really trying to expand and do everything. You got the Donnie Yen spinoff. We also have an animated John Wick project that's in the works. Now, this one I'm kind of excited about, because it's an anime movie that's a prequel that's done by Shannon Tendo, who did Kubo and the Two Strings. If you haven't watched that yet, go and watch that film. It's a stop motion animation. It's got a gut punch. It's got some heart and emotion. It's a beautifully done film that you should really go check out. But Keanu will be back to voice that character. Looks like the story's going to follow John killing off all of his rivals in one night to free himself from the high table. So it could be a very violent, insane, crazy, over-the-top anime film. But I'm really curious, because of where Shannon's coming from, what style this anime is going to be in. Are they going to do the stop motion? Are they going to do full anime style? Like, I mean, they call it an anime movie, but there still could be a lot they could do with the style and the look of this film.
Yeah, for sure. I've said for so long that John Wick lends itself to the world of anime so well, because of the stylistic way that the movies are shot. Even I'm like, man, this would be such a good anime, and like in that whole realm, and this could be an exciting way to bring that to light, I think.
It also saves Keanu's knees a lot.
Yeah, well, no kidding. If you just had to do the voice, of course. But yeah, that's going to be a ton of fun to check out too, because, man, a John Wick anime would be incredible, and I think that would do really well. And maybe future opportunity to set up like a John Wick anime type series, that maybe prolong it that way, and kind of, like you said, save Keanu's physical body from having to go through John Wick 72 when he's like 80 years old at this point. But like, it's one that I think definitely would lend itself to anime very well.
Yeah, we even have, I believe there's a John Wick video game that they're trying to get off the ground and get going and stuff, and especially after the 4th one, when you got that top-down view with the Dragon's Breath shotgun scenes and stuff. Like, fantastic. I want to play that in a video game. Like, give us a John Wick video game, because that would be pretty incredible. So we've got a lot of John Wick coming ahead that we could look forward to. Like, so far, like, there's only been one real kind of miss so far with the TV series that they did, which I haven't even as much as I love John Wick, I never got around to watching. And then after it kind of got critically panned and kind of canceled after one season, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to watch it.
It's rough, but worth a watch, I think. I mean, I think it's only like 5.5, 6 hours of your time if you're willing to invest that in it. But Yeah, it's a little rough, and it's kind of panned for a good reason. I wanted to move into a real quick hitter topic. It's one that, if you're fans of How to Train Your Dragon, we've obviously got the live action film coming up this summer that I'm looking forward to watching as well. But we've already got a sequel to it greenlit, so they're pretty optimistic this is going to do well. I'm pretty confident it's going to do well as well, just because of how incredibly popular that the animated films have been, and the fact that they're incorporating it into the new Epic universe that's opening this year down in Orlando. But we got a greenlit sequel already in place, so I think they're very confident this is going to do pretty well.
Yeah, the greenlit a sequel to a big budget kind of action kids film before it even comes out, especially in the climate that we've had with things, because we got a little bit of word, which I'll touch on real quick, that the Tangled live action movie that Disney was going to do has been put on indefinite hold after how Snow White did, and for them to go ahead and greenlit How to Train Your Dragon 2, because the trailers look great and my kids are absolutely in love with it and ready to see it and stuff, but there's been a lot of talk like, well, it just looks like it's a shot-for-shot remake of the animated and everything else, but it looked like a lot of people got a first viewing of it at CinemaCon, and there's been a lot of great praise for how they did the live-action film, so them giving greenlit to the second one, there's more books than there have been movies so far, so I'm really curious if these do really well, if they move on beyond what the animated films did of just adapting them and adapt more of the books.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely an avenue for that if these are successful to do and explore those stories. So hopefully it does well and they get the opportunity to do it.
I want to move on to another story. Again, this was kind of around CinemaCon here, that we talked about this several weeks ago, that the AMC CEO, Adam Aaron was talking about how we need to make a change. You've got an 18-day window for most films going from theatrical to digital. Bigger ones get a little bit more. So he's been doing the work and going around to different studios trying to get them on board. Like, hey, we need a longer window. And so far, he's got 3 studios to agree that they need to go to a 45-day window for bigger releases and stuff. We also got Paramount came out saying, theaters need to do something too, because if you don't know much about CinemaCon, this is really about the cinema chains, and this is about presenting to basically shareholders and people for the theater chains and the films to present like, hey, we've got all these movies coming up. We've got some big stuff. They need to make some moves and do some stuff. So Paramount was like, well, we need to reduce like pricing, matinee pricing till 6 p.m. You need to do more stuff to get people into the theater. So it's like, reduce the ads. How about no ads? Fewer trailers, make sure people are getting into, because we show up a little bit early to the movies. A lot of times the previews start and the ads start about 5 minutes before the showtime, but it's 25 minutes after showtime before we actually get the film starting. So, and we counted down with the Working Man. We saw the same 2 commercials 4 times each. So we got 8 of the same commercial ad. One was like, I've blocked them out of my memory. I think they were both travel, because one was the woman covered in mud doing the scene over and over again until they yell cut and she goes and gets a spa day, and the other is the people from Japan coming over to do a honky-tonk line dance in Nashville and stuff. And we saw that 8 times before Working Man started.
It's a lot. It's probably besides people talking in the theater, it's my biggest gripe with the movie-going experience. And I get it. Like, they need ad revenue and things like that. But I agree. Like, you get the whole, like, we like to get there a little early, even though, you can pick your seat ahead of time. So it's not like it's not like it was 10 years ago or longer, where you bought your ticket, but you had to find an open seat, and there was the whole thing. And now they've made that process so much more simplified by just, what seat you're sitting in when you buy it and go into the theater now, which is so nice. But yeah, like, I hear from a lot of people that's like, are super picky about when they go to these movies, is because of how much it costs to go. Like, when they go, it's so hard to go to a matinee movie with so many people working until, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening in a lot of cases. And you're saying that matinee prices are already gone. So it's already more expensive than it would be seeing a film earlier in the day. And, getting that, and this isn't even talking about how long the movies are staying in the theater, just the actual theater going experience is so expensive for a lot of people. And we've even taken notice of that ourselves with like how much like these movies are costing to go to every week. And it's like, even like this time 2 years ago when we were still going pretty regularly and we're doing the podcast, we could go to a 6 to 7 o'clock at night showing and it was like $12 for a movie. And now it's like 18 to $20 now. Just in the last couple of years, it's gotten so much more expensive. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I get these places need to make money, but at the same time, it's like, are you pricing yourself out from making even more money than you could if you were a little bit more reasonable with how much everything costs?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it does boil down to the changes that the studios have made about having films in theaters less time, because the chains have to capitalize on the time they get there, because they don't make a whole lot of money off of the movies themselves. What they make the money off of is the concessions and the merchandise and everything else that they get you in the door with. They get a cut of, the cost of it, so a higher price for a ticket gets them a little bit more money. But I think we really do. We need to get the studios and the theater chains working better together to kind of stabilize the movie industry. We've seen, and we'll talk about it when we get into the Minecraft movie a little bit here, like the Minecraft movie was the first movie in probably, I want to say 2 months that we had a nearly full auditorium to watch the film in. Past that, like everything else was maybe 15, 20 people max.
Yeah. Like it's been pretty sparse for people going to see these films when we've gone to see them. And there's a whole lot of stuff that they need to do to get on the same page. And like I said, I agree with hopefully a little bit longer window. If it's not 45 days, maybe 30 days, maybe they can kind of come to a happy medium there to give it a month at least to like see, because there's some films that you've seen that maybe even struggled out of the gate, and I'm trying to remember the Disney movie that did that, where it might have been Elemental maybe, that didn't start out doing the best in like the first week or two, but like week 3 and 4 it really took off once word of mouth spread about
5
it.
and 6, I get it.
Yeah, like
it had a slow burn, but ended up being one of their most biggest profitable movies.
Yeah, made a ton of money eventually, and it got the chance to do that. Now it's just like, well, I hear so many people saying I'm not in a big rush to see it because it'll just be on, Disney in like a month, and I can wait to go see it. Like it doesn't feel as like must see as it does, and it's a shame because we love. Obviously, we're doing a podcast about movies. Like we love that theater going experience, and for various reasons, there's just fewer people deeming it worth their time and money to go and have these experiences there, and it sucks. It almost like, what's this going to look like in 5 years? We keep talking about that. Like, how different is it going to look based on what it is now? If they're continuing down the rabbit hole they're going, we may not have movie theaters in 5 to 10 years. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah, because absolutely, a lot of people will be looking at that 18-day window like, well, hey, this movie came out at the beginning of April. I could wait 2 weeks and I get to watch it at home, whether they do it legally or illegally.
Sure.
But you got 2 weeks to wait. And like, I'll just wait 2 weeks if it's okay. So if it's a month before it's on streaming that I already pay $20 a month for, then all right, then I'll just wait a month and I'll get it on streaming. Because we did have that. It was like 45 to 60 day window for the theaters. And then it would take 3 months or so before it came out on digital, but it was doing a physical release before they even got to digital. And now you barely have them worrying about doing a physical release, and it's going straight on demand and then a couple weeks later. So like they've definitely shifted the times down way low between when you can watch it in theaters and when you can get it home. But if it's a month before it's on demand to purchase and then streaming, a lot of people are, it's going to cost me $15 a person to go see this movie. If I wait a month, I can watch it on the streaming service I already paid $20 for.
Yeah, or even just wait and like get it digitally for the same amount of money that instead of paying $60 to take, you and your kids out or whatever, $60 to $80 to go see this movie. You could wait like 3 weeks, pay $20 and watch it at your house.
And as many times as you want.
As often as you want. Yeah. Like that's it's starting to become the trend, which is smart for consumers, I guess. But I don't know. There's got to be some kind of give and take here. It's going to be interesting to see how they address this going forward for sure. Yeah,
so hopefully AMC CEO Adam, like, keep doing what you're doing. Let's get that there, because as much as we love to have the movies at home and ready, available, and to see it how we become an on-demand society that we want everything right now, we need to help the theaters and make sure that these films are getting, like, we've probably 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 films in the last 2 years have bombed completely. But a lot of it is because of they have 18 days to try to make 200, 300, 400 million dollars. Like, you're not getting that unless you're an Avengers film or you're an Avatar film or something else like that.
Or like a Disney animated film or something.
Even some of the Disney films, like we saw the Mufasa sequel did not come out the gate that strong, but it was another one that, because it stayed in theaters for a while, it built up. Moana 2 didn't come out the hottest out of the gates. Again, it was another one that built up and got it there. Like, you have to be a pretty big tentpole film to make $200-400 million. And of course, you've got climate of everything with it online that we've seen some films already getting dogged and taken down before they even release, and it's clearly hurt the box office for the good or the bad. Some movies, okay, maybe it deserved it. Other movies, like, you know what, you went off perceptions and the movie's actually good, but you already got it to where no one's watching it because everyone lives online anymore.
Oh, I heard people say it was a terrible movie. Like, go form your own opinion. I can't stress that enough. I get exhausted saying that, but it's just like, it's okay to take people's input, but still at the end of the day, watch it and form your own opinions.
But also say it's a terrible movie before it's ever been seen is another thing.
If you've seen it and say it's terrible, like Madam Web, then for sure, like, come on.
It's a weird climate, and we do hope that we start seeing some things turn around for these movie theaters so they become I've loved the experience since I was a kid. Like, we do have issues with so many people on their phones, and I got to say, to the Regal people talking about letting people smoke and be on their phones, that they want to try that, please don't. You don't need to appeal to that side. Like, that's some stuff that you need to draw a line. You want to get people in, but you got to draw a line about having a theater full of smoke and people on their cell phones talking. Like, if you're going to clearly have that labeled, okay, but have that be like one showing and nothing else.
That's going to be the argument that I was going to make for that. Like, I'm all for, like, having special screenings where certain things are allowed. Like, there's definitely been some, especially recently, they had like a version of Wicked come out that was the sing-along version. They encourage people to sing and like sing the songs and, you know, be interactive with part of the movie. Like, if you call it like a special engagement like that and it's clearly identified, by all means, go for it. If you want to have like, hey, here's a screen where you can have your phone out and, you know, it's fine and all of that, and people are cool with that.
Just make sure it's labeled properly so I do not attend it.
Make sure you know. And, you know, when we can get old man Brad here off his lawn to go see a movie, we know it's not that screening that he's going to. But I get it. There could be a time and place and a market for that. And if that's what it takes to get people back into the theater again, I'm all for it. Like, if there's certain screenings. Do I particularly want to go to a film also where people are out on their phones? No, not really. I mean, we've come on here and given PSAs multiple times about how much we wish people would stop talking during the movie. Like, you know, save those conversations for after the theater. But, you know, if there's screenings like that where that's cool and those are the ones you want to go to, please go do that. Don't come to our screenings where you're, you know, constantly talking or interrupting the film for everybody. But if there's versions of that they can make money from that people will go be a part of, like, hey, I'll go to the theater if I can have my phone out during the movie, go to that screening. By all means, have a blast.
Yeah, just have that one special screening, leave alone. But I can just see a door opening and just smoke billowing out of the theater into the rest of the auditorium there, like a Cheech and Chong just let out. And like, okay, if you want to have that, let it be one special, but don't, because you're going to have that where people don't understand. And if they do start trying to do that, you're going to have people who go in there and don't want that and don't realize if they don't label it correctly. Because we even have, looking at the listing, like where our theater, the main theater we go to, have VIP and special seating, which they do separate, but they don't label it very well.
Right.
It's just like, okay, why is this at 7 and that's at 7? What's the difference until you click on it and you say, okay, so that's the VIP sitting area. Like, label stuff, especially being a UI UX guy and stuff, like, label stuff correctly and make sure things are known so people know what they're getting into.
For sure. There's a ton of work to be done, but there's ways you can get people back into the theater. I think that would be effective, making it more affordable, giving
the biggest is going to be the cost.
Like, that's going to be a big driver to get people back in. And hey, if you're going to do discounted days, advertise it a little better. Like, I know our theater does some cheap movies as well. There's some special screenings that they do for like $7. You can kind of go in blind and not see it. There's a famous story of before Deadpool and Wolverine came out that it was the special $7 Monday night screening that you went to, that you take a gamble. It could be an old movie, it could be a new movie, it could be something you don't know what you're getting, but you're going for $7. And people that paid the $7 to go before Deadpool and Wolverine came out got to see Deadpool and Wolverine for $7. So there's things that they could do that make it fun and can make it affordable to get people out there. If they just advertise it a little better, it could be more successful.
Because even a lot of cinemas also have special showings for those that may have audio sensory issues, or that they can't normally go to a normal screening because either the sound or the screen or something is overloading.
I love that.
And they have those, which I love, but they don't really advertise it that much. You don't really see or know, okay, which one of these showings can I take my kid who may have those special needs to go to be able to enjoy a film that's a little bit lower down and more geared towards them. Like, they've got to do a better job of the theaters themselves of labeling these showings and screenings that that they're available.
Right. And, as I said, we'll see what comes out of all of it, but we do feel like it appears that there's some trying to champion that and try to, get the magic back in the movie-going experience. So hopefully some positive stuff comes out of that. I want to move us into our last news story before we get into our movie and TV reviews, and kind of has to do with our TV review as well. But another thing coming out of, a recent interview from Vincent D'Onofrio, who's been absolutely fantastic as Kingpin in Daredevil, Born Again, and every other property he's gone in as the Kingpin. And he's kind of put it out there why he hasn't made an MCU appearance, and it's because Marvel, while Kingpin is part of this property that they're putting together, they don't actually own the film rights to the character, which is where this whole crazy multiple studios owning multiple IP properties is just driving me nuts. But it appears that Sony, much like Spider-Man, like they have for Spider-Man, has the movie rights to the Kingpin character, and that could be that is really what's keeping him from appearing in the MCU right now. In the film part of it, he can show up on TV, but not in film.
Yeah, he said he can show up only in TV stuff, which is where we got him in Echo, and we got him in other MCU TV properties and stuff, and you had him in the Netflix series. Of course, they worked with all that, but yeah, Sony owns like the Rogue Gallery for Spider-Man, which includes Kingpin for the film rights. So unless they come to a deal with Sony to say, which would be extra money, that Kingpin can appear, that they have to pay extra to get him in films and stuff. I know Vincent D'Onofrio, especially with the love that he's talked about playing this character and being able to come back to him again, he would do it in a heartbeat. But it's up to Sony and them. It still surprises me that it's gone on so long that Disney just hasn't tried to strong arm and buy out Sony, either buy Sony or buy the Spider-Man rights back so they have full control over, because it's kind of the last one with Spider-Man and all of his villains and all of his characters that they don't own the rights to, because Universal reverted all the Hulk rights back to Marvel. And I think there was a few more. I think there was something about Namor, and there was a few others that there's a few different rights scattered out, but I do believe most of it's back down to now it's between Marvel and Sony owning all of it. And yeah, I'm really surprised they just haven't tried to get all of their characters back under their own.
I can see why they're holding on to Spider-Man as hard as they
Sony,
are.
I know why.
Because we literally just talked about it. You put a Spider-Man film out, it's almost guaranteed to bank $1 billion right now. But like, I get why they're holding on so hard to that, but it just makes things frustrating from a creative perspective, because like you talk about like Fox owning the rights to the X-Men and Deadpool for as long as they did, kept us from really getting a strong comic book proper Avengers film without having some of the X-Men involved. Like, how good could these earlier Avengers films have been had Hugh Jackman been able to really be integrated, as Wolverine in those? Because Wolverine's, one of the classic Avengers characters that's never gotten to appear in an Avengers movie. Put him in Avengers Doomsday. Please keep it a secret. I don't want to see it in the trailer. Surprise me in Doomsday. Have Wolverine show up in the freaking Avengers. You've got all the other Fox X-Men guys coming back in this movie. Put Hugh in it. Stop screwing around. Make it a surprise. But I'll leave that be. But yeah, you just start dealing with the rights of these characters, and it's put it kind of like a hard pin in any sort of full creative that you could have to tell a full story as comic book accurate as you want. And this is just another case of that, unfortunately, with Kingpin.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to use Kingpin? All right, give us $50 million. We're allowed to use him in one movie, because there are very strict guidelines that Sony has in place, even with Spider-Man. That's what we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine, that pictures that may have included Tom Holland's Peter Parker or Spider-Man were covered up, because that would account as an appearance, and they would have had to either renegotiate and get another appearance put in there and stuff, but they have to pay every time that he's in a property. And so that's why we didn't get Spider-Man coming in Deadpool and Wolverine, because it wasn't part of the licensing deal that they had with it. So like, but yeah, Sony's holding on hard because it's been said for a while now. There's two things that's keeping Sony afloat. It's the Spider-Man rights and it's the PlayStation. Yeah. Those are the two things that are keeping them afloat.
Sure, and those are two. They'll never give up the PlayStation, but Spider-Man, that's tough, man. That's so tough because, like you said, anything tangentially attached to that is just keeping you from making just incredible stories. Like, thank God they got the Fantastic Four rights and those characters back at least. But man, if they could find a way to get Spider-Man in the fold, man, they'd be ready to take off, man. Because like, my God, there's so many cool stuff that they could do that they just, for whatever reason, without jumping through a whole bunch of red tape and bureaucratic nonsense, that's just keeping them from making even cooler stories than what they already have, and it's just a real shame. Honestly.
Yeah, because we've got 4 appearances by Tom Holland. Well, 4 films for Tom Holland. Of course, he's appeared in Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame and all that, and he's going to be in. At least we know how big a part Spider-Man is. The Secret Wars, Doomsday. We still don't know exactly what he's going to be. We've got all these appearances. We've yet to have his Spider-Man meet Venom because Sony has the rights and they've done their own thing, and we know that Sony hasn't done a great job for the most part with what they've put out for the Sonyverse. Even though the Venom films were successful, they weren't a successful story and character-wise to most comic book fans. But we haven't had Venom and Spider-Man get together yet.
Which is blasphemous and insane because it's like a yin and a yang relationship there. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I wish they could all come together and make it work harmoniously. But, some cases, it's exactly why we can't have nice things.
Mm-hmm. And we know that hopefully we see some changes because who was the middle person in between Sony and Marvel for all the Spider-Man stuff is gone. They have someone new in there, but we'll see if that relationship is better or worse because of that. And if we hopefully maybe get a better working relationship with Sony on that and let Marvel handle more because of Madam Web and Morbius and just Craven and all of those just kind of bombing and not doing good at all.
The analogy I use is as I'm looking into my room behind the camera where we do it, this is like, imagine if the layout in the room is like, there's my door into this room that's right there. Marvel has the door swung wide open and you can walk through it freely. And you have the people at Sony trying to walk through the wall in the closet here to try to get out the door, but there's no way through that door. And they just keep ramming their head into it, thinking eventually they'll break down the wall and find a way through, and they just can't do it. If they could just simply take 2 steps to the right and walk through the freaking door, like they would be able to, move forward. But that's kind of the analogy that I like to use for it because, you just make it so much more difficult for yourself. Like, come to an agreement where Marvel handles the creative of it and you still get a financial cut of it. It should be wham bam easy. There you go. Let's make some magic. But that's not how things work, and we can't have nice things sometimes. So.
I'm looking forward to seeing Spider-Noir, what they do with Nicolas Cage. Beyond the Spider-Verse, the animated films have been fantastic. They've handled, but the live action they failed pretty poorly with. So I do think and hope that a new agreement is met, or if Disney, the House of Mouse, just decides, all right, we've had enough, we're buying everything up, and now it's the Disney PlayStation 6 that you're going to get.
It's one of the few times I wish that were the case, because not everything needs to be owned by the same company. But man, in this case, I'd love to see that creatively.
And so we're going to move on to our film review of the week. So this is one that's going to probably be a little polarizing between everybody. Is the Minecraft movie. So this has got Jack Black, Jason Momoa. You have Danielle Brooks, Emma Myers. You have Jennifer Coolidge in a little bit of a role. So this is taking the very popular Minecraft game and bringing it into live action. A live action hybrid, because the world of Minecraft is all CGI. And
sure.
I will give it props to say that it does a good job of paying respects to the game. Like, it shows you the creativity that you can do. The style of everything looks true to Minecraft. You have it, but it tries a little too hard to make sure this is Minecraft. Jack Black is absolutely telling you step by step, this is the name of the weapon. This is the name of the item. This is the name of this. Sure. This is a crafting station. Let's go mine. Let's go craft. Let's Minecraft. Oh, you said the name in the movie. Like, sure. It's directed by Jared Hess, who most famously did Napoleon Dynamite, Nacho Libre. So kind of going in. I mean, he's done some other projects since then, but based really off of those two. You know, kind of the slapstick type of film that you're going to get, but I think this one does kind of fail in its story, but it's really hard for me because I can see two different sides of this. One that puts a score extremely low, and one that brings it up more for those fans and for the kids that it's made for. But for adults, I think there's a lot that's it's entertaining, but because you're laughing at it, not because you're laughing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I get all those points. You knowing who directed the film and who stars in the film, this film has a very early to mid 2000s humor attached to it, but which makes sense considering that the guy that directed it directed two like some of the more classic early to mid 2000s like type of comedy films with Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. You're getting Jack Black being Jack Black. He is
Steve.
He's lovable. He is Steve in this movie, obviously, but I love Jack Black. He's so funny. When it's cheesy, he's good at being cheesy, which is part of the charm that Jack Black does have, but he's so talented and funny and just able to like just his physical comedy, like in his face and his movements and stuff like that. He does a good job of that here. Jason Momoa is as over-the-top and silly of a character as you can get playing Garrett the Garbage Man Garrison, which is a hilarious name. You'd think he was a pro wrestler with a kind of name like that, but
dresses like Macho Man Randy Savage.
Very much, and 80s hair metal. I peaked in the 80s kind of like character in this, and just so over the top. The dialogue is corny and cheesy throughout 95% of this movie, but knowing the tone of the film based on the trailers, you expect that going into it. You expect to be it, and it's a fun movie, man. Like it's a lot of fun. You're not looking for like a really deep philosophical movie. You get the gist of the plot as you go along, but they do like you said a good job of keeping it true to what the game is, right? And they very much do a good job of explaining kind of the concept of the game to people who may not have necessarily played the game and are going to see the movie because it's got Jack Black and Jason Momoa in it, right? So I think in that sense, like it does a fine job of doing what you expect from a Minecraft movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so going for the story-wise, we start off with Jack Black introducing his Steve character. He's a kid who loves the mines, and he wants to go into the mines, but the old-timey kind of prospector-looking miner will not allow him into the mine. So it's not until he becomes an adult and he's a doorknob salesman that he decides to go back into the mines as an adult, and he ends up finding what basically looks like the Tesseract to be able to create a portal into Minecraft is basically what happened. That's how we get our story, but he is just found his love and life within Minecraft, and his town that he's in, these two young kids, when it's between the characters of Natalie and Henry, they've lost their parents. She's moving them to the small town because she got a job as a social media manager for the potato chip factory. That's the big ticket item in this town, and they move in there and they meet up with a realtor, Daniel Brooks' character Dawn, who's a realtor but also does a mobile zoo. Again, has it gotten ridiculous enough for you? Yeah, this is what you got to expect going in, of just how ridiculous and over the top. But it mainly revolves around Steve has been put in a predicament that there's a group of pigs in the Nether that want to take over the overworld. And so he sends his wolf, Dennis, back to the real world to hide it under his bed. So so she can't get the portal and come out. But of course, it ends up in Jason Momoa's character because he's down on his luck. He owns a vintage video game store that has vintage video arcade games and NES cartridges that he blows in, because cool. There's a lot of jokes for like our generation in there, but I feel like most of that stuff is going to be lost to the Minecraft generation, or not going to really know like, why is he blowing into that cartridge? What is he? Yeah. What are all these jokes that are for the older people? Because that's kind of the one major problem I had with the film, is just tonally, like a lot of the jokes are for really little kids and for the fans of Minecraft, but then you have some innuendo and dirty jokes that are for the adults, and then you have some throwbacks. Like it's kind of all over the place. It's a PG movie, but it's still got some just weirdness with the jokes. It looks like it's appealing more to like your 10 and under, but it's got a lot of stuff.
Kids that play Minecraft.
That's like, okay, I mean, kids may get what they got, but it's really ludicrous. Even when they bring in Jennifer Coolidge as a vice principal of the school that Henry's going to, he sits down in the principal's office on the first day of school, and she's telling him all about her divorce and how, it's like she's in therapy and he's the therapist, and she's just unloading everything to him.
She's a mess in this movie in some of the best and worst ways. Like it's just so over the top and cheesy. But yeah, I mean, plot wise, it is what it is. The everything around it is absurd and is meant to be so. I think it's a very meta movie in a lot of ways, but it's paying homage to the game and trying to tell a story that makes sense on how we could practically bring this into a physical, real world meets CGI hybrid type setting, right? And you're not getting the deepest film out of this by any means, and it's not meant to be. But you get Jason Momoa's character coming across this cube in a storage sale where he goes and buys a storage, thinking he's found this vintage classic Atari that's worth a ton of money, because, as a lot of adults know, a lot of vintage video game stuff is actually pretty valuable. And just kind of playing on that, like the concept of him owning a vintage video game store is actually a pretty cool thing, but it's in the middle of this Idaho town that couldn't care less about video games at this point because they're all working at the potato chip factory, apparently. Like, it's the big deal in town. But, you get Natalie and Henry's characters here who, Henry winds up meeting up with Jason Momoa and them kind of bonding a little bit, and them finding the cube. And then, of course, it's got the most absurd note with the cube that's like, whatever you do, don't combine this cube with this glass object, whatever you do.
The note, it was almost like an aside in the movie, like breaking the fourth wall of like, don't ever do this, don't ever put it together ever.
Unless you're down on your luck and needing a bunch of money, in which case there's a bunch of awesome treasure here, and it's like, oh geez, what do? I need money. Doink. And here we go. Now we're off to the other world where it's like this acts like a homing beacon to get back home, and that's what brings Henry and Garrett and eventually Dawn and Natalie into this world to try to find Steve, because Steve's been taken capture by the pigs in the Nether. And, their whole point is to go and try to rescue Steve and like break Steve out and, get to, save the day. And they go on this hijink adventure full of just craziness as they start to explore this other world that, this overworld that Steve's kind of helped build. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it at that point,
And then you get a villager ends up escaping out of this realm into the real world and meeting up with, getting hit by the car of Jennifer Coolidge's character. Yeah. And then we get a very strange, weird romance, dinner scenes, and more stuff. Like, if it hasn't sounded ludicrous enough to you, it is ludicrous. And this is where I'm kind of torn on exactly where I want to rate this movie, because I was entertained and I had fun with it. But, man, was the dialogue bad? Was the plot bad? Was the story bad? Was it just really rough? Like, a lot of times I was laughing at it and not with it.
Absurd.
A lot of jokes about Jason Momoa's butt, and then the positions him and Jack Black get into to make it through. Like, there's a lot of it's a dumb humor movie, but my kids absolutely loved it. They cannot wait for a sequel. They wanted to come home immediately and play Minecraft again. There was kids and teenagers cheering and having a great time. So it's like that's where I'm also torn, because it's like, for the adults that may not be as big in Minecraft, there might not be a whole lot that you can enjoy out of this, unless you're a big fan of the Nacho Libre and Napoleon Dynamite type of humor and everything else that you might get some fun out of. If you don't really know the game world that much or care that much about video games, it's probably not a movie you're going to really want to see or have an enjoyment out of, unless you really love that slapstick, because it just goes full bore into its ridiculousness the whole time. And he said the plot just, it's there to service, but again, like I said, I'll give it props because it does a great job of showing off Minecraft, about the creativity and the building, and all, even though the characters learn how to build a little too quickly, like, oh, wait, Oh, okay, I knocked a hole out of a tree and there's a floating block. What? Oh, I can throw it on the ground and it creates a block. Oh, here, let me make a tower. It's serviceable. It doesn't take time to set anything up. It's just like, here, we're going to go in scenes with Jack Black showing him how to use a crafting table and Jason Momoa making what he, oh no, I meant to do this.
Like bucket nunchucks.
Like it looked like they had a blast making the film, but it's going to have a lot of mixed reactions just because it is so ludicrously over the top.
Yeah, and I think what you need to, like, in some ways, I think you need to hamper your expectations of a movie like this going into it, because you paint a very good picture of the audience that this was targeted to. This is very much targeted towards younger audiences who play the game, who do that. Not to say there aren't adults that enjoy and play Minecraft, but the vast majority of people that play this game very much skew on the younger side. Like, this is more of a creative game, like, meant for kids. Not to say adults can't get enjoyment out of it too, but like you said, you're talking about the experience that your daughters had. I went and saw this movie with you and your two girls, saw the enjoyment and the absolute blast that they were having out of it, how excited they were in the movie, how excited they were at the end of the end credits scene where there's setting up a, very much probably going to have a second movie of this come out where, they're moving forward with the other main character in Minecraft that you don't really see in the movie, that gets introduced at the end in the post-credits scene, and, just the excitement that they got in that. And I think for that, you kind of have to give it credit to set out what it wants to do. This isn't necessarily a movie made for us. It's got people that we enjoy from movies that we like of theirs previously to be in this, and that's kind of I think the wink and the nod for the parents. Like, hey, we got Jack Black and Jason Momoa in this. Like, we know you love these guys, but very much geared towards kids, and it's a very kid friendly type movie. And I think based on the experience that we had in the theater, it did a good job of entertaining the younger people who love the game and got to see this put into a movie that's very much geared towards them.
Yeah, but being a video game adaptation, it's going to be compared to what's came out recently. So, like, the Super Mario Brothers animated movie was fun at any age, and everybody could have. The Sonic the Hedgehog films have been so insanely popular and well received by all. So this is definitely feel like almost a step back before those, in a way. But because it does, it's going for the very young audience that is playing Minecraft and stuff. But it does, to me, go a little too far with the corny kind of humor with it. Like, it could have been better with the story and everything else. But it's when you have those, like Sonic has done so fantastic of giving us a solid story, good humor, paying tribute to the character and stuff. There's going to be a lot of comparisons. Like, all right, well, Minecraft kind of took us back to how video game movies, for the good or mostly worse, before kind of Sonic and the Super Mario Brothers movie took us into a much better direction. That's why I say I'm so mixed on it, because I had fun, I was entertained, but man, if you really want to dive into it and look at it, it's just ridiculously dumb when it comes to the plot and the dialogue and the stuff it does. But
it's a fair criticism.
It entertains.
It's a fair criticism, and it's what. And I think it ultimately comes down to what you're expecting out of a movie like this. It really is, because you said people are going to compare it to other video game movie adaptations that come back. It is very much not as good as the Super Mario Brothers movie or any of the Sonic films, but isn't it an entertaining movie? I can honestly say, as somebody who's not a big Minecraft player myself, never really got into the game. I know, like, my niece and nephews were, like, huge into it. I think my nephew still plays it fairly regularly between, like, Minecraft and Roblox. Like, those are the kind of games that like he's played. But, like, I think they would get a ton of enjoyment out of this. And like you said, your kids got a ton of enjoyment out of this. This is a movie I can honestly say that I've seen it once. I don't know necessarily if I'll come back to it. Not to say that I wasn't entertained by it, but I think it did an effective job of showing off the world of Minecraft. To your point, like we mentioned earlier, the theater in our showing was extremely packed, more so than any of the other films we've seen recently in the last several months. Probably won't see again until we get to, like, maybe next month with the Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Fours and the Supermans coming out. That, like, you're going to see that level of audience participation in, which is a shame because we do have some really good movies coming up. But like it feels like it's going to commercially be very successful.
Oh, absolutely.
And honestly will spawn the second film that they kind of already know they're going to make.
Yeah, it already felt like, especially there are some bonus scenes that set some stuff up that you feel like we're definitely getting another one if it does well enough, and it's already tracking to potentially do $150 million in its opening weekend. So it's going to do well, but in the end, a Minecraft movie is ridiculous. Like, you've got to go into this knowing what you're getting out of it. It is made for the younger generation that is heavily into Minecraft. It does a great job of showing off and paying tribute and honor to the video game, because it walks you through the game and the building and the crafting, and there's a lot of Easter eggs and just secret things that if you don't play Minecraft, you don't know what exactly this means or what it's about, but it's a funny joke if you are a Minecraft person. But the plot's bad, the dialogue's bad, there's a ton of overacting. I mean, I love Jack Black and Jason Momoa, but they're like caricatures instead of characters in this film. They're ridiculous, over the top, but the audience it's made for, the younger generation, my girls absolutely loved it. And like I do with a lot of these films that are made for families and for younger kids, I give extra points to my review because I add in who it's made for. It's made for the kids. Some adults are going to get some enjoyment out of it if you like Napoleon Dynamite and you like Nacho Libre and you like that type of humor, because it's well displayed here. But I'm still going to give this probably a 5.5. Like, I'm giving it a little extra for my kids, but I was entertained by it, but it was rough.
Yeah, and I get that criticism. I'm going to give it a 6 myself, just because of, like you said, it is very much geared towards kids. I see the appeal in it to kids. It's got fun. It's got fun elements to it. It's got humor that, we were cracking up at some of the absurdities of it, but the audience was having a really good time with this. And I think, knowing good and well that this movie wasn't made for people like you and I, who like aren't the biggest Minecraft players, but like can appreciate, the way they laid out the game and how it works and how they incorporate it into a movie. I think they did a fine enough job for that. It's not going to be the best movie you see. It's got some fun slapstick humor that is reminiscent of Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. This is very much not Napoleon Dynamite or even Nacho Libre as far as like quality of movie, but I think it does a fine enough job of keeping that lighter tone, keeping the absurdity, because sometimes you just need a good slapstick movie to kind of just turn your brain off and enjoy and laugh at some of the absurd things that happen, and they do a fine job in that. You're not getting award-winning classic film acting in this by anybody in this film. It's meant to be over the top and silly. Is it as good as some of the other video game adaptations we've seen lately, like the Sonic films, the Mario Brothers movie? No, definitely not on the level of those, but it does a fine job doing what it is, and for that reason, I'm comfortable giving it around a 6. It's not going to be the worst movie we see all year, but it's definitely nowhere near going to be the best one we see either.
And I agree. Like I said, I gave a little bit extra to my 5.5 for my kids. Because, again, the kids who play Minecraft, your younger kids, even your teenage kids, they're probably going to love it. There's so much cackling and laughing, and especially on some of the more inside jokes of Minecraft. That's who it's made for. This is one that's very specific, that it's being made specifically for those younger audiences that play the game, and it succeeds in that way. The older audiences are going to have a lot more issues with the problems and stuff with it, because I didn't go in to watch anything Oscar worthy at all, and I knew the director and what he's done and stuff before, but even some of the stuff was like, okay, really? Like, you're going to do that? This is the kind of the best plot and story you could come up with. But hey, in the end, I was entertained. It's just a little bit rough. But a Minecraft movie is in theaters now. Go check it out. Go take your kids to it. They're going to have a fun time with it.
Yeah, and it's gonna make a bunch of money. It's gonna come out with another one, I'm sure, in a few years, where they come back and revisit this. So hopefully they take what they learned from this and improve upon it for another movie that they make. So check it out. Come to our social media posts and let us know what you think. If you've seen the movie, would love to hear your thoughts on it, and let's have a conversation about the film. We'd love to talk about it with you. Now I want to move us into our TV review of the week. We got episode 7, Daredevil Born Again. We're coming up. We're 2/3.
I laugh because it's such a stark contrast to go from a Minecraft movie into episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again.
There's no clean way to get into this, really. But You go from cheesy over-the-top movie to very dark, gritty TV show that's got some serious stuff happening. So we're on episode 7. There's 9 episodes in this season. We're over the 2/3 of the way home through this show so far. And we get to episode 7, and now we start to deal with, the aftermath of Matt putting on the Daredevil costume. So at the end of episode 6, we have him saving Angela from Muse and, putting the costume back on again. And that's really where we pick up in episode 7. So you start to get the fallout. You get Angela in the hospital, waking up, from losing a ton of blood, unfortunately, from her interaction with Muse. You have Matt saving the day, and they're starting to deal with the fallout now. You've got, Mayor Fisk being made aware that, Daredevil is back. That's who saved this girl, and that's how he found, Muse's hideout and everything, and Fisk come to the realization that Matt's back in play as Daredevil here. So now with his anti-vigilante task force he's got put together, he has his arch nemesis back in the fold, back putting on the costume, so he knows he has a real serious threat to deal with, and it's really where this episode kicks off.
Yeah, you get throughout this episode of a Fisk who's like, do I really want to believe that he put that suit on and he's like disobeying what we talked about at that dinner scene and everything else? Like, all right, maybe it wasn't him. But Angela's telling everybody it was Daredevil. And even we get that police, after they're told, if Fisk is told, they end up finding Muse's lair and they're going through it and everything. But Matt ends up showing up to it after they've gone, or we think they've gone. And it's one of my favorite, it's a ridiculous scene, but I still love it. And I hope it's a running gag, is that the one main dirty cop comes walking back in while Matt is going through art, and he ends up finding someone that he didn't expect to find through the art and stuff. And he's like, hey, what? And he immediately throws and hits him right between the eyes and knocks him out and just goes about his business. Like, let that be a running gag from now on. I just want to see that. I don't want that guy to die right away. I just want him to get beat up by Daredevil over and over and over again.
Yeah, the whole knocking out of Officer Powell has to be a continuing gag throughout this show. Hopefully he winds up in prison for being the corrupt cop that he is, but let this be a running gag for at least the rest of the season before this vigilante task force hopefully gets put to bed. But we'll see. We're still kind of in the early stages of that.
Yeah, but we find out that Muse knows of Heather, and so we get some, which at first you may think are flashbacks, but it's happening in real time, that Muse is actually a client of Heather. So she kind of has been helping him through stuff, but in a bad way, that he believes that she's the one that kind of unlocked Muse for him, that he kind of puts her as like, you're the one that got everything going for me.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a callback to earlier in the season where she's doing her book signing stuff, and you see very clearly that, if you recall back, he's the fanboy that comes up to her at the signing talking about how important she was. You don't know what Muse looks like until this episode when she opens the door to her therapy office, and you're like, oh, hey, that's him. Oh, hey, that's him. And then you kind of get that realization that that's who that is. And, this starts to play out in a very real way for Heather in this episode.
That's the only thing I'd say that I wish they kind of set up more of throughout the series here, is her connection with Muse, because we're kind of getting it all in one episode. We got that one little peek before, but we're getting all of this knowledge that she's been dealing with the guy who becomes Muse. I would have liked to see that sprinkle out, that you get to see maybe in Fisk is Vanessa coming in, he's walking out, or you're getting a little bit more depth of that. She's been seeing him as a client for a while, but she doesn't really know who it is, because it's very clear once we get through this therapy session with him that she knows who he is and what he's been doing, and everything goes haywire after that.
Yeah, she comes to the realization that he is Muse and he is the stuff, and he's there for a very real purpose, and she's his next victim. That's who Matt finds in the lair of Muse, and comes the realization that artwork is of her. So he's on a mad dash to hopefully save her from being murdered by Muse, and we'll get to that too in a minute. But there's some other threads in this episode that are kind of playing out as well. You get this real relationship conversation between Heather and Matt, where she sees some of these scars and these bruises that Matt got from his fight with Muse, that she's like, hey, I know you're kind of dealing with this stuff, but are you self-harming? Are you doing, what are you doing, to work through this stuff, and why are you not opening up about it? And Matt, being Matt in the way that he avoids talking about anything serious, kind of plays it off like, well, he uses his disability is
I'm
a
blind.
crutch to explain, well, I'm blind, I bump into things, I trip and I fall sometimes, I'm reckless, like, you know, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, how much longer can you get away with doing this in front of this obviously incredibly bright woman that you're so madly in love with now? Because they do tell each other that they love each other after this conversation, so you see where the seriousness of the relationship is heading. But he's still very much trying to keep her a little bit at arm's distance, especially now that she started poking around about trying to talk to vigilantes and things for her upcoming books. So you kind of see that in the back of your mind a little bit as you start to see more interactions between them.
Yeah, we also get Cherry kind of calls Matt out because he knows, like, hey, he knows he's Daredevil because of the bullseye on the roof and everything. And he comes into the law firm and talks to him like, hey, you're supposed to be done with this stuff. I told you to walk away. You're not supposed to do anything. And when they go back and forth, he's like, you're on your own. Like, he basically calls him out, like, if you're going to keep doing this stuff, you're
not helping.
I'm not helping. I'm not doing anything. So that was an interesting dynamic. There's a lot of people who wonder why we didn't use a police officer that's already been established in the Netflix series instead of bringing in someone like Cherry. But I enjoy the actor, and I've liked what it does. Maybe there'll be something deeper that we get, because, again, we know that this is kind of a tale of two series almost, because you had the original start, and then you had the reshoots and the reboots and everything that they went through. Like, I think 8 and 9 are the only ones that are going to be fully done by the new creative team. All these others, 1 through 7, are combinations of what they already filmed, and then reshoots, rewrites, and everything else. So we still fully haven't got into, even though I'm enjoying it. So that's why it's making it curious exactly just how bad was that original stuff, and what's the rebooted stuff, what's the original stuff. Of course, we know the White Tiger stuff had to be original because he unfortunately passed away, but it's going to be really interesting going forward with the new creative team, how the last two and the new season go, because we're opening up a lot of things here, because Daredevil is back and people are more seeing him. We get, Matt shows up to Heather's office to help, and he smashes through a window in the back, and we get BB's, news that plays a part in this as well, that she's showing that it was Daredevil that went into it, but Fisk has a different idea of how that's going to go. But I kind of like how Fisk spins to his new right-hand man about how the business that he had before he became mayor was like, Daredevil just beat up these blue-collar workers and these guys who were just trying to make a living and doing right, and Daredevil does nothing legally and has no right. He answers to nobody. Like, he's spinning that he is this such righteous person that everything he's ever done has been justified. He's done it the right way. Everyone that he has had work for him are good, solid people, are not criminals, or like you truly believe and start seeing that Fisk really believes this twisted reality that he lives in, that he is the savior of people and that he is a good guy, even though if he does things his own way, it's justified. But if Daredevil does it his own way, he is a horrible person that needs to be brought to justice.
I think one of the subtle undertones that I haven't really seen too many, if anybody, make the point of, there's a really powerful line that he says is, now that, like, as mayor, it is my job to make sure that people work within the confines of the law, like the way the law is. But with him being the law, it's his law. So what does his law necessarily mean? And they're having fun playing with that, because he said he's giving these, corrupt police officers their own vigilante task force that only answer to him. Well, he's the law. You're working within the law because I am the law. Like, this may not be what everybody considers to be lawful. It's what I determine that the law is, because
so he's Judge Dredd.
He's kind of, he kind of is in a lot of ways. The law is what I say it is, kind of thing, because he's in that position of power. And it's a really fun power dynamic that they're playing with Wilson right now, because he does very much in his own mind feel like he is doing the right thing because it's the way he sees the world, right? So that's like his thing. Like, we know very much for moral reasons that he is the villain, but he's not the villain to himself.
He's not a villain in his own story.
He very much sees Daredevil as the villain here, because, like, he's accumulating wealth, but he's also like, everyone that works for me, I've made them rich too. I've risen the tide for all of these people that work hard for me. Real blue-collar millionaires is what he described them. Like, anyone that works for me got taken care of, all that other stuff. And he's playing a really fun power dynamic where he's like sharing things from his perspective, and they're really toying with that in a really fun way here that I think works for the story that they're trying to tell, because in his mind, he is the law, and everybody that's doing what I ask is doing the lawful thing, even though what most people wouldn't consider that to be the lawful thing. Like, they're having fun blurring that line, really, and it's a part of the show I'm really enjoying right now.
Oh, yeah. Justified in his reality. Not reality, but his reality. That,
yes. Because
he's skirted the lines on so much stuff, even as mayor, but it's okay because it's for the people.
Yeah, he's the mayor. He's the person. He's invoking the will of the people. Who is the people? He is the people, but he's doing it for the people. Yep. There's another interesting thread that they're kind of playing that really gets played out in this episode, and you've had play out throughout the entire season so far, is the character Luca, who is one of the top street-level lieutenants in Fisk's business, who's been very much affected by the fact that Fisk and really Vanessa haven't really been around to help keep things moving the way they were used to having it moving. And he's been obviously the most vocal, with him going directly to the mayor's office and having a talk and a confrontation with him where he basically tries to, blackmail Fisk.
Strong arm the Kingpin.
Like, not the wisest of moves, but now you see him getting a little desperate where he's reaching out to Vanessa, trying to say, hey, like, I'm ready to make a power move at this point, and I could use your backing to go against Wilson, because he's probably aware. I don't remember how much he knows of the marital issues that they're having. I'm assuming he knows a little bit due to the fact that Fisk hasn't been there, and Vanessa was kind of running things until Fisk came back. But like, he goes to Vanessa and he's like, hey, I'm ready to make a move. Can you help me go against Fisk? And we could take over and get things back to the way things were running, and, kind of retake over the city as we were kind of, doing things, and gives her this ultimatum like, hey, I'll give you the choice. You're either, on board or you're not. And that plays out in a really, really interesting way by the end of the episode.
Yeah. And that I could see people seeing it from two different perspectives too.
And that's the fun part.
I mean, I think we can go ahead and talk about that and get back to the other part of the ending is that we end up seeing Vanessa is by herself and texting somebody and saying like he's alone at this address. And then we get Luca showing up to that address, and we see Fisk just eating by himself. And we think, all right, has Vanessa set up a hit on her own husband? But we see that Kingpin's right-hand man is there and takes out Luca. But I can still see it from both, even though Fisk asks if Vanessa wants something or not, with their marital issues and everything else, you could still see it like, was she in on it? Was this a ploy between her and Wilson to take out Luca and just end that? Or was it a legitimate attempt by Vanessa to try to take out Wilson?
And that's the fun part of the weekly episodic drop, is we don't know where that's going yet. And it's fun because you could make very strong arguments that both are true. Mm-hmm. Because you can make the argument that, yeah, she may have been trying to play a power play, but Wilson's always one step ahead, and he always knows what's going on, and he's always ready and stays ready and has every situation accounted for and every contingency that you can think of in place in case it goes one way or another. But you could also make the case that, hey, Luca's been a problem for them for, several episodes now, with the whole lack of willing to pay the other person the $1.8 million that they told him to pay, and his flat out refusal to do it. And then them coming together and be like, okay, well, we can get him off the table if he's going to be a problem, and say, hey, I'm going to send him here to you. Be ready. He's going to come through that door, and have your man take him out. Like, have the opportunity for it and kind of play off his own ambition. So that's the fun part that you can have.
Definitely see it both ways.
You could have it both being, playing out. It will be interesting to see which road they decide to go down, and what's probably going to play out in the next episode, and see what the fallout really is. Does he have something he needs to say to Vanessa at this point, and maybe that's his fun way of toying back with her, asking her if she wants some. That's
immediately what went to my head when he's asking her if she wanted something. It wasn't a confirmation that they're working together. It's more like, all right, I see what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I know what you're doing right now. Message received. Now it's war between the spouses.
It could be
potentially going. So there's definitely an edge, because it's been building to something is going to happen between them, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be happily ever after. And we're probably going to get something that pushes Fisk to the edge. And if his beloved Vanessa has now put a hit out on him and did try to take him out, that could be the thing that finally snaps, and maybe he literally snaps on her and something bigger happens like that. But it was definitely something I looked at, well, I can see it both ways, and it could be both ways. And she may play it to him that, I knew you would have your guy there to take him out. We needed to take Luca out, but I couldn't let you in on in case he has a spy, or we couldn't trust your right-hand man or something, play it that way while she's still secretly, all right, I need to find a different way to take them out.
Over. Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun that they're this is the way they're choosing to present that, because it's a little guessing game for the audience here. And I thought it was really cool dynamic to play, put that in play to kind of leave people to guessing, like, is this really this way, or is it going this way? We don't know. And that's the fun part of the weekly watch along. And if you're waiting to go and binge this, first off, shame on you. You should be watching this every week as it comes out. But if you're waiting to binge watch the entire thing, like, you'll get that resolution significantly quicker than we will. But it's fun to have that hypothetical play out, because you can kind of start, a lot of times I like to, poke at people who try to fan write something and then getting upset when it doesn't go the way they think it's going to go. But at the same time, this is kind of a fun way of which direction are they going to go, because we don't know. And you can make a strong case that it's going to work this way or it's going to work this way. And I think it's just clever writing on their part, because it's played off so well, because this is the very end of the episode. This is how the episode ends. So we don't know. And it's, obviously going to pay off in the next episode or two, but I'm excited to see which direction they go with it.
Yeah, before that, we did get kind of a resolution of Muse's story already in this episode. So, he's in therapy with Heather. She puts 2 and 2 together. He knows she puts 2 and 2 together. So he starts his Muse talk, and he ends up getting a nosebleed, and he starts painting with it. And I think it clicked for her before that, but that was the final thing. Like, all right, yeah. I can't hide that I know your Muse, because I know your Muse. And he ends up capturing her and tying her down in a very, if you're squeamish with stuff at all, he takes a blade and runs it down her arm, and I'm like, you okay? Like,
it's intense.
It's intense, because you start getting her bleeding out, and then he goes and puts on his Muse costume, and we get that the task force has shown up because the police went to Fisk to tell him that they figured out who this person is, and going a little bit about his backstory. But again, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of him and his backstory spread out throughout the series, other than 99% of it being in one episode. But, they find out who he is, that they know that he's been seeing a therapist. Fisk clicks like, oh, it's my therapist. Oh, I'm going to take care of it. You don't need to do anything else. Have a good day. And he sends his task force out. Well, before they can get in, Matt comes bursting through that window, and we get another good fight scene behind it. But, he's a little, I think, even more out there than he was with Angela, because he's like, this is a woman I love. I'm going to beat the living crap. It even hooks him like in the shoulder to pull him back away, because he goes to run after her. And we get a long fight scene that ends, and kind of surprising, but it's also what you kind of expect, is that it wasn't Daredevil who took out Muse. It ends up being Heather shoots him multiple times and takes him out. But then she collapses from the blood loss, and you get a little scene between him and her and Matt where, he says her name and is trying to take care of her, but the task force is about to come in, and she's a little cloudy and not looking. That whole thing, like, well, if she was full in her right mind and she saw the beard and the face, like, yeah, that's the guy I love who just saved me. So it's that little extra of like, all right, let's be a little hazy, but you do get a hospital scene that kind of sets up some more interesting stuff between her and Matt.
For sure. And you get in getting into, Muse's backstory, the character that plays Muse, his name's Bastion, in the story as well. You wonder, like, how does this serial killer guy stand toe-to-toe with Matt, who, if you know anything about Daredevil, has got very extensive hand-to-hand training, and he's this very skilled hand-to-hand combat fighter who's almost got next to no equal, and you're like, this guy's holding his own. How is this guy holding his own to Daredevil? Well, he gets like a strict Taekwondo training background where he's really good at self-defense and fighting in his own right. And so that kind of, you get a little bit of the backstory why he's able to kind of hold his own against Matt when they fight, even though Matt is clearly a better skilled fighter than Muse is.
And even though Bastion says he hated it and only did it for a short while, but it was enough to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Matt.
Matt for quite a bit, but Matt very much is the more skilled fighter, and it kind of plays out in that way. So you get a little bit of a background as to why that's the case, because if you didn't know, you're like, how is this guy fighting Daredevil? Like, I don't get it. But yeah, you get the whole hospital scene set up, but you get the clear manipulation of the media here that Fisk is starting to go on with this campaign now. He's like, very much public about his anti-vigilante task force. He's like, I told you people I was going to save the city. Well, now he's got the media spinning it that it wasn't Daredevil that saved the Doctor and helped put Muse to justice. It was Fisk and Fisk's task force, because they have a real interesting conversation between Fisk and one of the guys, the leader of the task force, where he's like, we know Daredevil did this, but the people are going to know that it was you that did this. Daredevil didn't stop him. You stopped him. Your task force stopped him. So now they're going into the media to paint the picture of, Fisk's task force is the one stopping these vigilantes from hurting people. And, there's a really powerful scene there towards the end of Fisk holding this press conference saying, we told you we were going to take care of the vigilante problem. Well, this is us taking care of the vigilante problem. We found Muse, and there's like this powerful visual of Fisk and all the guys, and they hold up the Muse mask like, we got him. This is it. This is our guy. So he's kind of starting to try this whole public media campaign to try to get the people on his side that vigilantes are bad. People like Daredevil and Muse are a problem. Like, very much trying to publicly paint that picture, and we'll see how that plays out with the people in the city. But now you start to really go into, this Fisk and his task force are going to be a problem for Matt as Daredevil, and now he's going to be more fully involved as Daredevil. And how's this going to deal with his personal life? How's this going to start to marry the things again that, he's worked so hard to build, especially since Foggy's died. And, you got the situation going on at the law firm with him and Cherry and their partner, who in this episode is very wised up to the fact that something's going on, and she knows they're keeping something from her, and she wants to be in on it, but they're still kind of keeping her at arm's length. I want to see how that plays out too.
We also finally get to start seeing that darker side of Daniel, because he calls BB in because she does her BB report, and she is talking to the people, and all the people are like, yeah, we saw Daredevil bust through the window and go in there, and saying that it was Daredevil. And Daniel calls her in with, it's not a threat, but it's a threat, but it's not a threat, but it's definitely a threat.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. Like, it wasn't Daredevil who did it. I told you don't need, he laid it out to her, like, we control what is being said. You need to stop what you're doing, or it's going to be very, very hard for you to do anything, maybe even live, if you don't listen to what we're doing. So we definitely saw the darker turn of Daniel in this episode. Like, he's kind of always been skirting that line because he's a fanboy of Wilson Fisk and is doing whatever he can for him. But this is the first time we've really seen him threaten who was a friend that we kind of got, because she took information that he put out and ran a story with it, which rightfully so he was upset about, and then he shouldn't have let himself go since he is in a position of power. But he's come back full force with the threats on her.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fun threads moving forward in these next couple episodes. But man, I'm having such a good time with this show right now. I feel like it's really found its voice, it's really found its tone and its pacing, and I'm really excited to see how these last two episodes play out, knowing full well that this is really where the new creative team got to kind of really dig in and move the story forward with what they want to tell. So I'm excited to see how this plays out over the next couple episodes, because we only got 2 more weeks, man. We've been waiting. It feels like we were waiting for years for this show to finally come back, and now we're like 2 episodes away from the end of the season already. I can't believe we're finally at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we've heard rumblings that episode 9 is insane. And 8 is also pretty solid as well. But yeah, we're moving into the new creative team to see exactly how they do. We know we have, somebody worked on the Punisher. We know we have at least one more scene with the Punisher, because it's been out there and shown and everything else past what we've seen. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it. It has its problems, and that's because it's had 2 different creative teams working on it. They had 2 different directions that they were going into, and they tried to merge that into one until they can fully take over and go, because they just couldn't fully restart it due to actors passing and time and budget and everything else to give a full and absolute reboot. But I'm really looking forward to see how these last 2 in, and then see how that creative team takes season 2 and beyond. Because they did announce that it was 18 episodes to begin with. I think now it's going to be like 17 between the 2, but it's going to be a completely direction than they originally started. So season 2 is going to be the one that I think is really going to be big for them, because after we've seen with all this stuff. But I've enjoyed the season so far. I think they've done a fine job with merging everything together. It hasn't been as easy to tell what's a new creative team, what's old creative team, but we know there's been a ton of reshoots and changes and stuff with that. But I think they've done a fine job after so long of bringing the show back from what. And you can go back at our Netflix watch or re-talk that we went back and talked about the Netflix series, or just how much we loved and praise that show for what it did, that it's been solid.
I love it, and I love the original Netflix team talking about the direction they were going to go with season 4, how they got to do season 4, because you got to see a lot of that introduced with a lot of the stories with the Typhoid Mary story that they were kind of starting to tell with, Jessica Jones, Alice Walker's character, who is obviously Typhoid Mary, that they were going to do is going to wind up being a major villain in Daredevil season 4, which would have been a lot of fun to see, but I'm really liking the direction they're going now, and the way this is going to play out, and hopefully get connected to other things, because they make allusions to it already, but once they get fully into where they're going, especially with season 2, I'm excited to see how that takes off too. But I'm enjoying the journey so far, man. These first 7 episodes have been a lot of fun. Like I said, they're not perfect, but they're really, really good. Like I'd say it's pretty close to being on par with the Netflix stuff already, but I think when they get once we get to these last 2 episodes, I think we'll start really putting it on par with that from what we're hearing and where they're wanting to take the story moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll see if we get the Defender showing up at all to continue the story. We've got Finn Jones has finally spoken out about his Iron Fist and stuff. Like, didn't really want to go into everything that happened, but just like, give me a proper chance to be Iron Fist. Like, he said he'd come back. Just give me a proper chance to show what I can do and what we can do. Because we weren't sure of, like, especially after all the controversy and all the talk and everything that happened over people just being displeased with the Iron Fist show and his character and stuff, that he probably wouldn't even want to sniff around to come back, but apparently he wants to do it to prove a point that he could be a really good Iron Fist.
Yeah, and if he gets that chance, I don't know. I know obviously Kristen Ritter's been heavy in pushing to try to get Jessica Jones back in the fold as well. Mike Coulter hasn't completely slammed the door and coming back as, Luke Cage as well. We'll see if that winds up just manifesting itself. But, the jury's still out on that. I'm just so glad that we got Daredevil back at the very least. So that's the one. If I had to get one, obviously that's the one you want. But we'll see if the others make their way back to it at some point too. And we'll see if they get integrated in at any point. I'm thinking we may more likely get a Jessica Jones integration before we get the other 2, but we'll see. The jury's still out on that for now. But Daredevil Born Again is out on Disney Plus right now. First 7 episodes are in the books. We got 2 more episodes over the next 2 weeks. Excited to continue going on this journey. Please come to our episodes and let us know what you think about it if you're watching along too. Let us know what you're thinking of the show so far.
Yeah, we've had discussion going on our Discord about it, and it's been really fun to talk about. So you've probably noticed throughout the episode here, we've got a couple bottles of Mike's Hot Honey and some GoldStar Chili gift cards. This is our latest giveaway that we're going to give 4 people a chance to win one of these. You're going to be able to go to willbringthepopcorn.com/giveaway for your chance to win. Of course, Gold Star is not, it's in the tri-state area here where we are, but it's not for everybody. So we're going to allow you to have the chance to choose if you want to win a gift card, if you want to win a bottle of hot honey. We even got a bottle of the very hot honey. We want to thank our friends over at Mike's Hot Honey and GoldStar Chili for providing the items for our giveaway. But once this episode drops, you'll be able to go over to the giveaway page on our website and learn how you can sign up and get entered to win. Our May 5th episode is when we're going to announce it, so you have until about May 3rd to enter.
Yep, and go to the willbringthepopcorn.com/giveaway for the ways you can enter. No purchase required for entry, but also thanks again to Gold Star and Mike's Hot Honey. And if you don't live in the tri-state area, don't worry. You can use the Gold Star gift cards if you want to try it. You can order it online in their store and have it shipped directly to your house as well. So if you've ever been curious to try Cincinnati chili, there are opportunities to purchase cans of it to get shipped to your house as well. So don't be afraid of picking that as an option if you're curious to try it and you don't happen to live in the tri-state area. It's an opportunity for you to get a chance to try it too. Go to willbringthepopcorn.com/giveaway and find out how you can enter. You have until May 3rd. Like we said, we'll have the episode on May 4th where we'll announce our winners. So good luck to everybody that gets entered.
And so heading over into what's coming up this week, we do have The Amateur, which is a Rami Malek action spy thriller that we've seen kind of the same trailer for every time, but I'm glad that they're not kind of hitting us over the head that we've had with so many movies of getting so many different sneak peeks that it feels like we've seen the entire movie. I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. It looks like it's a little something different from him. I mean, you've seen him in Mr. Robot and a bunch of other things. Of course, Bohemian Rhapsody was completely different than this, but it looks like it's going to be a solid film.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that one out. The trailer for it looks really cool. Rami Malek, Lawrence Fishburne, sign me up. It looks good. Excited to check that one out and talk about it.
We also got the horror film Drop that we've seen thousands and thousands of times in theaters before movies. That's the horror film where she goes on a first date, but she ends up getting airdropped different things that she's got to make a choice between her date and her kids. And it's going to be interesting to see how that one turns out, but it does feel like we were beat over the head with the trailer for that film.
I have the beeping sound from that trailer stuck in my head for a good solid 2 weeks after seeing several iterations of that trailer over the last several months that we've been going to the theaters. Excited to get that movie out. I want to check it out. The premise of it looks neat. I want to see, how the movie itself plays out, but that one's finally coming out too.
And we have Alex Garland's latest Warfare, his war film here, which has got a little less fanfare than Civil War did when it came out, because we were hearing about that film nonstop, and this one's kind of quietly coming out. I've heard good things about it, but it is one of those kind of just getting one of those more quiet releases in the theaters.
Yeah, I know we hadn't talked about going and seeing it. I've seen a trailer for it. It looks like an interesting movie. May not be one that we make to the theater to see, because these films only get like 6 days in the theaters, it feels like at this point. But yeah, definitely one to check out for sure if you're into Alex's films. A fantastic filmmaker in his own right, so definitely interested in checking that one out.
Yeah, on demand this week is Novocaine, dropping on April 8th for you to purchase. You can go back in our archives to see what we thought about the film, but we had such a great time with this movie. But it's another result of that 18-day theatrical window. Like it potentially could have a kind of cult following and get a slow build, but it just wasn't given the time in theaters to really try to make its money back.
Yeah, really enjoyed that movie. Jack Quaid does a fantastic job leading that film, and it's definitely one to check out. If you hadn't got a chance to go see it in theaters, check that one out for sure. It's one I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of.
On the streaming side, we have the film G20 premiering on Prime Video this week. We have Viola Davis as the President of the United States, who has to survive when the G20 summit comes under fire. So you also got Anthony Starr, who's, best known as Homelander and The Boys, kind of being our main villain here. So he plays a good villain. Like, if he's a villain in something, if he's in anything, I'm probably going to say, because he's done such a stellar job. Like, even if, depending on what you feel about Homelander, we know he's an insane character, but the nuance that he's had of playing this character that has so many weird and odd, quirky ticks and be able to play it. He plays it so perfectly. So to see another film where he's playing a more realistic villain should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then you put Viola Davis in anything, I'm going to watch it. She's an amazing actress, so it's definitely one to check out for sure.
Yeah, on the TV side, we have the final season 6 of The Handmaid's Tale is premiering on Hulu on April 8th. So again, if you do have Disney Plus, you can add Hulu on that. I've seen the advertisements. That's a show I've heard so many things about, but I've never gotten around to seeing it. So I may, as I did with Breaking Bad and everything else, once it's over with, might be the time that I finally end up checking it out, when I can just binge watch the whole show.
Yeah, there's a lot of seasons. Season 6, it's got a heck of a run as it has. It's finally coming to an end, and that's another good series that's going to wrap up here with hopefully a strong season 6.
On April 10th, we have the sequel series, the sequel to the Gremlins, the Wild Batch series on Max. So this was an animated Gremlin show that actually came out and did really well. So a lot of people are looking forward to seeing season 2. Again, that's another series. I love the Gremlins, but I haven't checked out this series, but it got rave reviews, and I'm really looking forward to see. Hopefully I can binge the first season and then go right into season 2 here.
Yeah, definitely another one worth checking out if you're a fan of like the Gremlins movies. Excited to check that one out too.
And one a lot of people have been waiting for, season 2 of The Last of Us is premiering on HBO and Max on April 13th. So we've got, if you know the game, there's a lot of kind of crazy stuff and emotional stuff that's going to hit and happen in season 2 here. But, that's finally kicking off this month.
I'm so excited for this show. Love the games. The games are some of my favorite games ever. The show, season 1 was fantastic as well. Pedro Pascal was brilliant in it. And it's one that I'm ready to, I've got the tissues ready to, let some emotions out in this one. If you know where the game's going, if they're following the directions of the game, you got some gut punches coming in season 2, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's one we're not going to be able to do a week by week breakdown of it here on the show, but we will end up doing a full season recap of it a little bit later. Once I think right after it ends, we'll be able to do a full recap of that series, which I'm looking forward to, just to see the differences here between the game and the show, because we kind of know they're already talking about a season 3 and 4 potentially for the show. the game currently stops at 2, so they're going to be going outside of the game world, and just to see exactly if that works out well, because it has worked for some. Others, when it goes past the source material, doesn't work out as well.
Don't you give me that Game of Thrones look. I know where you're trying to go with it and what you're trying to allude to it, but hopefully it doesn't go that route. But yeah, it's been a fantastic show so far. Excited for season 2 for sure. We'll have that season recap when it wraps up here on the podcast. Unfortunately, we can't do it week to week. It just doesn't line up with some of the other things that we're trying to do, but very excited to watch along with that one and give you the full recap when the season's done. Definitely one worth talking about. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support. Thank you to everyone who comes to our Discord and talks about these shows with us. Comments in all our social media posts. Let us know what you think about what you're watching and the stuff that we're watching and how you feel about it. Please continue to do so. It really helps us, and we love having that engagement with you. Coming up next week, we are going to be reviewing the Rami Malek film, The Amateur, as well as episode 8 of Daredevil Born Again. Excited to continue to take that journey and talk about that show. But until next week, I'm Josh, he's Brad, and we'll see you next time.